That's very. Thank you for that. Back to these other beings, then. Can we talk about the hybrids? And essentially, one of the things that I've noticed is there is something distinct about. There's a couple of different opinions as to where hybrids, how we get them. Like, so your research indicates that these hybrids are created. They live their early years on board on ship. Sometimes that's where they live their entire lives. Sometimes they come to Earth and stay here for shorter or longer periods. There are other researchers, and I don't have to get into names, who will say that hybrids are born into human families. They are raised by human families. I'm assuming that you don't, you've not seen that in your research.
And nobody has ever contacted me and told me that. I don't even want to hear that. They had a baby. That baby is theirs. We do know, of course, from the very beginning, from early on, that women are impregnated, and that after about 10 weeks or so, 10 to 12 weeks, the fetus is removed. This is extremely common for women. And oftentimes they think it was just some sort of an odd situation where, what's the word I'm looking for? The fetus just wasn't right and it was expelled. Women have these experiences all the time. And I have to explain to them that from what I know about this subject and what Bud Hopkins knew about this subject, that it was not a normal baby that was expelled. That this is, you're an abductee, it's 10 or 11 weeks. There's certain things that have to happen before there is a baby. And if those things did not happen to the woman and a man somewhere, they don't have a baby. Then it's something else. And it's a difficult situation for women, to say the least. But Bud Hopkins first discovered this many, many, many years ago, before I started doing abduction research with him, or after I had not done abduction research, period. But he called me up one day and he told me that he said, you know, this woman is Carol or whatever her name was. And I said, yeah, I know Carol, yeah. And he said, well, she was on board this UFO, and this is about 1980, 84 or something like that.
Okay.
So she's in this UFO. They brought her over and they showed her a baby. I said, a baby? What do you mean a baby? Huh? What? Mm-hmm. He said, yeah, it was a baby. And it was a weird looking baby. It was weird. It looked like a combination between humans and aliens. It was like a hybrid. That was the first time ever spoken on Earth, that word hybrid, in relation to these aliens. And I remember thinking to myself, this is the most bizarre thing I've ever heard. This is so crazy. Why would they do that? And then he said, well, they wanted her to feed the baby. And I said, feed the baby? Does she tell them that she can't feed the baby? She's not lactating? There's no, that can't be done. And he said, yeah, she told that she can't feed the baby, but they forced her to put the baby to her breast anyway. I thought at that time, we will never understand alien minds, because it's not, there's something wrong here when everything is sort of fake, and they want to put the baby to her breast, but there's no milk. There's something else going on here that makes no sense. We'll never be able to understand them. Of course, we learned later on that the woman is already, her breasts have already been filled with milk.
Oh, you're saying she was lactating. She was lactating without realizing?
Right. Yeah. What we didn't know until later, of course, was that it already stimulated lactation. And when they put the baby to her breast, she did in fact have milk in her breast. But at the time, it was just impossible for me to imagine why they would do that. Now we know, of course, that it's hybrids. It's all hybrids, and this is a hybridization project.
Right, and this gets me into asking, because these hybrids, in your research, they're all raised on board the craft. They are raised. This is one of the oddest but most fascinating things about your research to me, is the nature of some of these hybrids. They have zero social skills. They are almost seems incapable of operating a normal kitchen. For example, they don't know how to get food out of a refrigerator, for God's sake. They don't know how to cook on a stove. They don't know how to do the most basic things that we would consider normal. And as I was going through this, reading through your account of this, all I kept thinking was, and they're going to take over Earth. Like, they don't have the first clue of how to manage our society. And I mean, didn't it strike you as like this odd thing? But of course, they have one power, which is that ability neurologically to control us. But I keep thinking, is that enough? They just seem, honestly, not very intelligent.
It's not a matter of intelligence as it is a matter of just knowledge. When they come here, and this is I'm making very large claims, of course. When they come here, as people have told me, they are naive. There's only so much they can learn being on board a UFO. Once they come here and begin to live in human society, their abilities they learn that there's a lot more to learn, an enormous amount to learn. So the abductee takes them to a supermarket and teaches them how to buy food, because you can't do that on board a UFO, obviously.
Right.
And the abductee teaches them all sorts of things. They are amazingly good at remembering things, astonishingly good, and things don't get mixed up in their minds, from what I can tell, and all information is remembered. So consequently, they're quick reads. They're
quick reads mentally. They actually don't read, though, do they? Or do they? Do they read?
I am not sure.
It was an interesting thing. Like, going through your research, on none of the abductees that you regress seem to indicate that these other beings, like, have books, or do this type of knowledge. And to me, that just struck me as, like, how would they pass on information? And the impression that I'm getting from your work is that is it what, all telepathic? That they just all mind meld essentially with each other? Is that it?
No, it is not that.
Okay.
If I live long enough, I will write a book about my experiences, so to speak, via the internet, talking with a hybrid. Now, I know that I fully understand how crazy that sounds, but there is a logic to it that unfolded with me for a long time, until this one hybrid who was living here, had just begun to live here, and I got into a conversation that lasted over something called AOL Instant Messaging, now defunct. I typed out things, and I would type things back. And this was in the room of in the home of an abductee with whom I had worked for many, many years, and who I'm still in contact with, and is not a person who would lie to me.
Right.
So, and I've known her literally since 1999 or 1998.
Okay.
So he was able to write to me, and I was able to write to him, and he read, and I read. So he has learned to do that somewhere along the line.
I see.
Perhaps on board a UFO, I don't know. But at the same time, abductees will teach hybrid children how to do things. I don't know if they've taught them how to read, but as I remember, there were a couple of instances where kids were reading things that they had purloined from human kids' rooms and things like that. So they can read. How they were taught how to read, I don't know, but these are hybrids. They're not humans. They're not fully human. Yeah. They've got other material in their brains that are different than ours, and perhaps better than ours in some way. Certainly better than mine, that's for sure. It's a good question, and the answer is, yeah, they can do all those things. And the ones who are coming down here, they can read, they can write, they can do this, they can do that.
Okay.
Normal.
Well, their society, alien society, just didn't seem to be one that had books or reading, to say nothing of arts, music, or what we would consider higher culture. Like none of that seems to exist for them.
They will purloin, they will steal children's books and have hybrid children read the books or look at the pictures or whatever they do. Having novels taken or other thick books, nobody's ever mentioned that to me. Nobody's ever said that to me. So we don't know whether they go on with their reading activities after they learn how to read early on. Learn how to read English, that is. I would imagine in France it would be French or whatever, German or whatever.
And the other thing is, well, they not only did they not seem to have like a reading culture, but I would think if I were an alien looking to infiltrate human society, I would at least have TV on board, or even like YouTube today, something where I could observe them through their video culture. But when these hybrids at least first come down to the planet, according to the abductees, they have no knowledge of anything, and I found that actually astonishing.
Yeah, in Walking Among Us, I talked about a group of young children, kids, who came into this one abductee's house. It was looking around, and they looked at the television. They didn't know what it was, and she said, "Well, you watched different things on it," and then they had a cascade of questions about who gets to watch television, how long can you watch television, who makes that, who says things like that, and asking all these questions about how one looks at television and why.
Like, what are the rules of watching television?
What are the rules? That's exactly right. What are the rules? That's what these young kids were talking about. We're not talking about full-fledged humans. That's for sure. And their brains are different than ours. I don't know whether they have the emotions that we have, but I do know that they have the information hidden areas in their brains that we may not have, that they can do and say an awful lot of things that we can't do. I wish I knew more about their brains, but I do know that they can control us and we cannot control them, and they can do it from not a great distance, but from a distance, from a few feet away, from 6 feet away or something like that, maybe. And that control that's a bad one. That's not good.
I think what makes it the worst is that these hybrids, if nothing else, seem like the contemporary definition of a psychopath. They don't seem to have the kind of emotions or empathy for other people that most human beings have. They seem to be skilled at faking their way through human society, like faking the human emotions necessary to get by. Is that what you've seen yourself?
Yes, I will, and now I'll tell you and your audience a story that was told to me about 6 months ago or so. Mm-hmm. This woman who is an abductee who lives in the state of Iowa, was at her background is that I'd worked with her years ago, and I hadn't talked with her for like 8 years or 10 years, and she called up and told me the story that she worked for a nonprofit organization somewhere in Iowa, or I guess this was in Nebraska, and she worked at a nonprofit organization, a company that does good works for children and people who don't have enough food and things like that. Mm-hmm. And there was going to be a big dinner for all the people who were connected to this organization. And she went, and there was platters of food set out on the table. And there was a couple who looked like they were in their mid-20s or something like that, who had said that they had spent 3 hours, they come up from Arkansas or something like that, to get to this dinner, even though they had no idea. Well, they had no connection to this, but they spent 3 hours to drive there which was interesting.
Right.
Now the food is on the platters, and they remove the covers, and the wife sitting across from my friend says, "What's that?" Pointing to rice souffle, a platter of rice souffle.
Yes.
And the guy sitting next to my friend said, "Well, it's rice souffle." And she, the wife, said, "Well, what is that?" "Well, it's a mixture," he said, "of eggs and flour and rice and this and that." And then she said, "But what's that?" Pointing more to it and more to it. And then everybody realized she was pointing at the rice. She'd
Wow.
never seen rice before, and neither had her husband, who just sat there and listened, as opposed to elbowing her and saying, "What the hell's the matter with you? It's rice."
Yeah, exactly.
She called me up to tell me that this story that had happened to her after 8 or 10 years of not talking to me, but she knew something was different here, that could not possibly have happened. Rice is probably the most eaten food in the world. You cannot grow up in America and not know what rice is. That is just not possible.
Yeah, agreed. But well, actually, one thing that you pointed out, at least toward the end of Walking Among Us, is that this, incredible lack of knowledge that many of these hybrids and hybrids, as you have called them, have had, seem to be overcoming it. So they seem to be getting to a point now in our own time that they're getting up to speed. So maybe there's going to be less and less of that, and that they are more and more fully integrating themselves into human society.
Well, you're talking about two different things. You're talking about integration, right, and growing numbers of these beings coming down, and then you're talking about, at the same time, how they're learning while they're here, when they're finally here.
Okay.
But you have to remember, this is a global phenomenon. It's just astonishing. Every once in a while, people write to me and say, "I live in Germany. There are no abductees in Germany."
Right.
And I got a little pile of people who've written to me from Germany, fill out a form that I have, which is they're obvious abductees. And this is a global phenomenon. There's a friend of mine, Young Hei Chi, who's a professor at Oxford University, and I taught him how to do hypnosis with abductees. And he specializes in Korean studies, and he goes to Korea every year for several months. And he now does abduction research with Koreans and also with Japanese. It's all the same. It's happening everywhere.
So they're getting the same data, in other words,
yeah,
from all over.
It's everywhere. It's this one large group of beings out there in the atmosphere somewhere, and this is a serious situation. I look at this and I think to myself, I don't think that my sons are going to be living the lives that they think they're going to be living. They're both older, mm-hmm. but I fear for the future. I never would have imagined myself saying something like that some years back, but now I have no choice. The evidence is overwhelming. It's sort of mind-boggling that this is happening, and that it's headed towards something. They're not doing this because they're experimenting on us or anything like that. This is headed towards what I would imagine to be a major event where they will suddenly take over the earth for reasons that we do not know.
Well, this brings us to the change, and you've written about this, and I wonder, we've got about 10 minutes remaining here. Can you talk about what is this change? You got this phrase from a number of your folks. What can you say about this?
Well, one of my books, people began to tell me that the aliens were telling them that soon there was going to be a change. The change was coming. Everybody was going to know his place. It was going to be wonderful. The change is coming. The change will be. And I always wondered what the change was. Mm-hmm. And I would ask abductees, well, what is the change? They must have told you what the change is going to be. Nobody knew. And if you think if this were psychological, well, everybody would know, and it might be different for every person, but they would say, well, the changes when this, that, whatever. But nobody knew. So, and let me just say also that nobody was aware that other people were saying that, obviously.
Right.
When I began to understand that these aliens were now coming down to Earth and beginning to live here, then I began to realize that the change was that this was, in fact, a takeover situation, and that the change for these aliens was that the Earth would be changed because they would then be in control. That's my best guess. And they would be living here, and they couldn't care less about the ones who are normal humans. They've got their own humans that they've been making, so to speak. But whatever it is, this planet will be theirs, I think. That's my best guess. They've been doing this for a long time. There's a reason for it. It's not just because they like examining humans. No. There's a reason for it. They are working towards this change of people who will be living here, I think. That's my best guess.
I've actually wondered that this would be actually an ideal society for them to conquer or to take over if they wanted. We're just on the verge of developing, implementing worldwide 5G smart device technology where every device is talking to every other device. The ability for a complete 24/7 surveillance into everyone's home is a reality. And just imagine hijacking that kind of infrastructure. It's like ready-made for them. They've got the neurological control, and if you put them in, strategic places within global society, they actually could have the capability to control even beyond their neurological limitations of power. You know what I mean?
It is certainly possible. Anything is possible with these beings. You have to remember that these are extremely advanced people, so to speak. Their UFOs simply disappear, or else they fly so fast away somewhere that nobody can see them fly. It's faster than the speed of light. You'll notice that on board a UFO, they're flying here, they're flying there, whatever. People do not feel any gravitational pull like you are in an airplane. If it suddenly starts to make a left bank, your body sort of moves to the right a little bit. Nobody has ever described anything like that. We have no knowledge of what their life is like outside of what people describe to us. We don't know whether aliens of any type sleep. We don't know how we know how gray aliens eat, but we don't know whether the other two, the insectolins or the reptilians, whether they eat or not. We don't know how they get fuel. We don't know anything. But what we do know is that this is extremely advanced technology. It's not just one layer above us. They have come through space from somewhere we don't know where, and flown here and have decided to take over. God, I hate to say this because it sounds so crazy, but to take over the planet, if you will. And they've done this before, almost certainly, and they're doing it in a routine fashion. They are extremely advanced. It's not like they're a few years ahead of us, or 10 years ahead of us, or even 100 years ahead of us. They might be 1,000 years ahead of us for all we know. And they're smart. And they retain things in their brains, just like we do, and they learn things just like we do, and all that. Now, I'm not talking about gray aliens necessarily, because they're different. They're workers who are created to do work.
You're talking about the insectolins, the ones at the top of the chain.
I'm talking about the ones in charge, the insectolins especially, and hybrids, because hybrids have human DNA in them, and they've got these. They have brain power that human beings don't have, and they can all talk telepathically. Now, of course, all abductees talk telepathically too, but mainly on board a UFO.
So what can we do? Is there? I mean, you've mulled this over 1,000 times or more, I'm sure, and I don't know if you have any answers. But have you thought of? Is there any hope? Is there anything that humanity can do in the face of this threat?
I don't know if there's anything that humanity can do in the face of this threat. The problem is that people of goodwill who are intelligent, far more intelligent than I am, need to get together and understand what is happening and then try to figure out some way of dealing with it. It may be too advanced to deal with it. It may be too late to deal with it, but at least we might have some sort of a fighting chance. That is not happening. As you know, there's an ongoing study of UFOs, and Luis Elizondo, I guess is his name, has been going around to different UFO conferences and talking about what's going on there. Mm-hmm. And what the group is doing is primarily trying to see whether UFOs are real, as if this were 1947.
Exactly.
I asked Elizondo, well, have you been doing any research into the abduction phenomenon? He said he's not at liberty to tell me that. So they may be doing something, but it's small potatoes. It's tiny. What they should be doing is contacting me, for example, who spent my most of my life studying UFOs and abductions, and Yvonne Smith and others who do this kind of research.
Agreed.
And debriefing us in terms of what we found and all the rest of that stuff. And they would start doing abduction research also, because that is the only way you can get inside a UFO, period. You can't get inside it. They're studying the outside shells of objects. They're not studying what's going on inside. Inside is the important part. So they would then start doing hypnosis with abductees, and they would realize the import of this, and there would be thousands of them doing abduction research now as we speak. And we would know it, because abductees would eventually tell us. That has not happened. It is not happening. They're still trying to figure out whether UFOs are real. This is nonsensical. It is beyond stupid. It's criminal.
Yeah, really, the only hope would be worldwide wake up right now or yesterday or last week and move in a coordinated effort to understand and then hopefully deal with this challenge. That's never happened with our society, with the world. We're still in this little fairy tale of UFOs. Are they real? Are they not here? Are we alone in the universe? Like these first grade level questions that just keep us spinning around in circles, unfortunately.
That is exactly correct. It makes me angry. It's just it's just craziness. It's absolute craziness. This is a global phenomenon. People around the world are reporting the same things. They're seeing the same things as they have always seen them for decades and decades and decades. And now they're saying the same thing. Now, here's another way of looking at this. Supposing none of this is true. Mm-hmm. Supposing there aren't no aliens up there who are kidnapping people. And yet, all around the world, people are saying the same things about the abduction phenomenon. And it's happening to them. And it's not happening. If that's the case, then we have stumbled on one of the most important aspects of human mentality, so to speak.
Psychological aberrations.
Right. Around the world, all saying the same things with these same psychological aberrations, and not knowing that other people are saying the same things.
Right. Well, one thing that is...
I'm about to say that is profoundly important. You'd think that scientists would get interested in this fake phenomenon that everybody is talking about.
Yeah. Well, I think that's much more unlikely than the actual likelihood that there are others who are walking among us and are here. The one hope, the only thing that I could say is the silver lining here is that they must operate clandestine. They must be secret. And so therefore, my assumption is if they were not operating in secrecy, we would have the ability to oppose this program. So there's always that.
That is right. Because they're secret, it means that that they're afraid of something,
Right.
that they're not in total control, that there's something else that they want to, they can't let us know about it because it's a weakness of theirs. There's a weakness there. We don't know what the weakness is. We don't know if we could ever stop it. That's for sure. But we don't have enough super intelligent people to get together by the hundreds, if not the thousands around the world and try to figure out what can we do about this phenomenon. And as long as they're secret and as long as nobody knows, then they're pretty free. But the point is that there has to be some sort of weakness there because they are secrets.
Well, David, I really appreciate your time on this, and I know your time is very valuable, but I'm very grateful that we've had this hour to talk about your important research. I hope that you're actually able to follow up with that last book that you were talking about, which is some of the nature of these beings going a little bit further.
I've been trying to write a book about how to do hypnosis with abductees, which I will release to the public in some way or another. When I finish that thing, which I hope I can do, I've been saying this for 10 years now, which I think I'll do by next week. Then I will write this book about my own interrelationship via Skype, essentially, with hybrids and how this came about, knowing full well that I might have been part of some sort of a horrendous trick from a very good friend of mine who I've known for 20 years and who would never, ever, ever do anything like that. But I'll let people decide one way or the other. It's interesting no matter what.
Indeed, it would be.
Then I should be about 100 years old by that time. So that time, and then I'll just retire then.
David, thank you so very much.
Thanks, Richard. I appreciate the time that you spent with me.
My pleasure. That concludes my interview with Dr. David Jacobs. To hear David and I continue this conversation, you can go to my website, richarddolanmembers.com, where he and I go quite a bit further in some of the aspects of this discussion. Thanks for listening. And remember, while we learn and grow and search for the truth, let's be good to each other. Later.